and my two panelists. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live in person or whether you're joining us retrospectively and listening to this or watching this as a recording. My name is Brendan Goss. I'm the Senior Innovation and Accelerator Manager with Tangent in Trinity College Dublin, and Tangent is the university's Innovation and Entrepreneurship Centre, and we are partners of a number of EIT, European Communities of Innovation, one of which particularly up to date is Climate Kick. And in conjunction with Climate Kick and Munich Re Ergo, we're running a carbon capture accelerator program and currently recruiting for startups who are interested in participating. And we're going to have a little chat over the next 25 minutes or so about the program and about carbon capture in general. And with me on my panel to answer a couple of quick fire round questions are Morten Kildal Sorensen, who is the Climate Accelerator Coordinator for Climate Kick based in Copenhagen, and an expert in clean tech as a project manager himself. And Harry Grocott, who is the co-founder and CEO of Treeconomy, which is a UK-based startup which participated in a previous iteration of the Carbon Removal Accelerator Program. And Harry is going to share and show a few of his war wounds from having participated in that program recently, and let us know, with the benefit of wisdom and hindsight, how he took advantage of being on the program and how it might have helped his business grow in the intervening period. So, without further ado, Morten, you might quickly tell us about Climate Kick, about the Clim Accelerator particularly, and about why you're involved in running programs like this.
Sure. So EIT Climate Kick is private-public partnership, and we were created more or less 10 years ago. We have been supported by EIT, creating different activities within the Knowledge Hub. One of the activities where we have been very active is within what we call the theme and place-based climate accelerators, and we run them in different settings internationally and also locally, and these are proven methodologies that we have 10 years of experience with. So you could say, why are we actually running this within the carbon removal, which is an area that 10 years ago had very little interest and also were not a very big part of the climate change conversations. However, the IPCC reports and also other reports supporting this area that carbon dioxide removal will be necessary to reach the net zero emissions, and therefore we have been moving towards supporting the innovative startups, both the ones that have a different range of technologies, but also national based solutions that can actually be supporting this in order to create solutions that can remove existing CO2 in the world. And you can say that within our climate accelerator programs, we have been supporting more than 2,100 startups in the last years.
Yeah. So you've run a Climate Kick, have been involved in running a couple of carbon removal focused accelerators in recent years. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. We're since 2017. We've been running together with supported by Munich Re and Ergo, where we have supported the different entrepreneurs within the carbon removal area.
Okay. What do you see as from where you're sitting within Climate Kick, as the challenges facing startups in the context of carbon removal?
So there's various challenges. I would say from my chair, I see a big challenge in terms of scaling fast enough from the idea stage to actually get to the approval of the technology so that can be scaled, but also in terms of actually that their technology is validated and have a positive impact on the climate. And then the third part, but this goes across all different climate accelerators and accelerator programs. That's the access to capital and investments. That is crucial in order to scale fast enough.
Okay. And Harry, just that is probably a serious pain point for a business like you at the stage of development that you find yourself at. Tell us, just before answering or discussing pain points in particular, tell us a little bit about Treeconomy, where the idea for the business came from, and what it is exactly, what problem it is you're trying to solve, and how you're solving it.
Sure. Yeah. No. I'd love to, and thank you for the invitation and having me on. So Treeconomy, we're a nature restoration and carbon removal business. So we're focused very much on that kind of nature-based is carbon removal too, is kind of what we're focusing on. We predominantly a software business, but we're deliberately vertically integrated, and we work very, very closely with landowners, land managers, and project developers. So we sell technology to quantify nature to developers. So we have 12 different developers now globally. So we started very much focused on the UK, looking at carbon removal projects. So that's afforestation, regeneration, and rewilding schemes are a big focus for us at the moment. And we've been asked to help with some mangrove restoration projects also. We sell a custom monitoring technology to basically quantify the exact amount of carbon removal in those ecosystems. So the carbon accounting, but for nature, kind of a metering system on that basis. It's always been important. It should have been default from day one. We still rely on tape measures and very manual processes to do this. But now with the emergence of much more engineered solutions, the scientific rigor and the evidence that goes on with those schemes is kind of chalk and cheese when compared to the way that the quality of data within the nature-based space at the moment. So what we're looking to do as a business is to bring the best aspects of engineered, which is the quantification, the evidence, the provability to nature-based, to say this is just as hardcore and can be just as durable. If you look at the Amazon rainforest, it's 50 million years old, so it's a pretty good tech. You just have to prove it and build that trust. And quite rightly, there's a lack of trust at the moment in nature-based. In terms of how we got there, I was originally a geography student, so climate change science has been my thing. We did satellites. I was very fortunate to have done a field trip to Brazil in my second year at Exeter University. I then ended up working in finance because, as far as I could see, there weren't any jobs in geography. You become a geography teacher, or you do go elsewhere. Which opened me up to capital markets, and frankly, there is loads of money, and capital at the macro level is just not the limiting factor. More can be made, it can be put to work. It's how you move things around that's important. And I started thinking, well, surely our clients would like to invest into something that makes money, removes carbon, and in some circumstances is tax advantaged, and there didn't seem to be anything for that. So I went down that rabbit hole, and it ended up being a data problem. I was shocked that people actually buy carbon credits where a tape measure on 30 trees is the way that you calculate an entire forest's worth of carbon content. There's no way that could scale. We have to think about gigaton, so billions of tons of removal, which means you need big institutional finance at some point to back that. And there's no way that finance would trust the data level. So that was kind of our entry point. And then I was very fortunate to join the Climate Kick ecosystem from the beginning. We were part of the Launchpad program, and then into this as well. But yeah, that's our background.
Great stuff. I'll come back to you, Harry, to discuss some of the experiences you had on the program itself a couple of years ago. But Thomas, hi, nice to see you, Thomas. Dr. Thomas Krismer here from Munich Re, everybody. Thomas, I think, from the point of view of risk management, which is where you're working, assessing risk for the insurance company for Munich Re and Ergo and so on. Why did you guys get involved in the carbon removal accelerator? What value do you see in being associated with it?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, for this panel discussion. Do you hear me? Is the audio? Do you see
Perfect,
me?
yeah.
Some problems joining. Now I'm here. Yeah, well, I mean, as hopefully is known to many, Munich Re has kind of a deep-rooted culture in taking climate change seriously. From kind of the beginning when it became a story to now when it really is mainstream that we need to tackle that. And we are really committed to make a contribution to tackle this fundamental problem for our society. And if we look into our books, into our businesses, but also on the market and look at the main components of going to net zero and meeting the Paris goals, then carbon capture and storage or carbon removal, of course, is a main part of that solution. But compared to renewable energy, greening transportation, and even industrial decarbonization, it needs a bit of a push on both sides, and on the technological side and on the kind of the economic side. So how can we really trust the removals? How can we trust the credits generated? How can we start trading? How can we really create an asset class here, which is really trustworthy and really helps the market and technology to evolve further. And we saw that with other technologies which now are mainstream, and with carbon capture and storage and carbon removal, that's just the next thing to push forward here. And I think that's kind of our end point, why we actually support the topic here. And then the climate accelerator. I mean, for us, that's good, or that's the vehicle actually to engage with new players on the market, or with new ideas, with young teams which bring really credible ideas to this discussion, and to get kind of both contribute to the development of that sector and that problem, but also to learn from you guys, to engage, to get an outside-in perspective of that, and also for our perspective and for our capabilities in order to tackle that, measure that, ensure that, and invest into that. That's why we are here, actually.
And you probably see, from an insurance perspective, the same kind of challenges that Harry's startup would see in terms of trying to persuade clients about the need to mitigate and adapt to risk, and about to try to persuade them and change their behavior. Do you find that challenging? It's more than just presenting data to companies. It's really a question of persuading them to incorporate that data and that new practice, if you like, into their business models.
I mean, data. I mean, we heard it in the contribution just before. Data is evolving, to say it in a positive way. So with all the mainly coming from the reporting side, of course, we have to report much more than we had in the past. So we are engaged much more with clients in order to share with us what their carbon footprint, for example, is, or also what their impact on other ESG related KPIs is. And also our clients, or many of our clients, are in the very beginning of such a journey, and then just have to learn by themselves where to get this data from. And yeah, true. So we have to do some kind of, or actually a lot of education, depending on the market and depending on the cultural environment the company comes from. Sometimes more, sometimes less, on why the topic is relevant, on why it is important, and why it needs to be mitigated, or we need to adapt to it. And then what we, I think, do a good job is in presenting us as a partner here. So, I mean, in the end, it is it is unavoidable. So it has to be done, and it's actually all of our peers do it. So we are not left alone on the market and are alone in the woods, so to speak. So we do have a product which is kind of sought after in the market. So if you want to have the Munich Re product, then you just have to go with our ESG ambition, which we are happy to develop with you. That's an image, not so hypothetical client discussion, and then we go forward. And so far, it's sometimes a bumpy road, but we are happy with our successes there.
Great. Morton, tell us a little bit about the program in terms of how traditionally the CLIM Accelerator is structured, and then ultimately the type of benefits that participating startups can expect. Not just startups, we have to say, I guess. I mean, we'd love to work with companies that maybe are already established, but that are pivoting with new products or solutions for a market that's now ready for them, where it might not have been ready a couple of years ago.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think maybe first of all, just a piece of advice and maybe also a bit of warning. So the application process that we have is rather long, so it takes, and we suggest that the startup and scale-ups, they spend around half an hour for actually doing the application. It's a rather tough application process, but that's also, we're making sure that we have the right applicants. You could say within the program, so the way we're structured is that we have two different phases. So the phase one is the business fundamentals, and that's where you could say that the first part, there's focus on, of course, the basic within the business development, also making sure that the product is actually scalable and that there's the economics within, that they have a climate positive impact as well, and that there's the peer-to-peer learning process. So it's not just workshops, there's also the coaching, and then there's the direct interactions with peers. And we've seen this is a proven model that has been working for us with more than 1,000 of young European businesses since 2011. In terms of what are you then getting out of it? So first of all, there's the fundamental understanding, is there a really scalable business, and is it climate positive as well? And maybe more important is, how can this be transformed into a viable business? And this is like the stage one. The stage two, here we're moving into the business validation, the traction, and the investment readiness. And this is, of course, focusing on the business. Again, it's a rather intense period where there's a need for being very active in the process. There's also a small grant for the startups and scale-ups that arrive at this stage. And there's again the possibility to get direct mentorships from both in terms of commercials, in terms of technicals, but also in terms of direct interactions with investors. Great. So you could say that there's various aspects that you get out of the program. If I should highlight some of them, is of course you get extremely experienced mentors, but also that you get validated your product in terms of the climate impacts and the access to investors as well.
Yeah, and particularly with this program, you get industry engagement with Munich Re Ergo as well, which is critical. Harry, are you proof? Are you proof that what Morten has just said is actually true? Can you testify to this?
On the program's support, you mean?
What were the benefits to having participated on the program from your point of view? How did it help Triconomy grow?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, fortunately, I will back Morten up. I won't tell him he's lying. No, it really is. It's incredibly useful and helpful. I was trying to think through the best way of summarizing it, and I think there's a couple of different areas. I think the structure of the program is useful both in terms of learning. But if you think about actually forming a new company, it's complete chaos all of the time, in a direction. But you deliberately have to be very open and flexible, and you're trying to figure lots of different things out at the same time. So having a structure to help me as a founder, but also our team to understand that, to be able to ingest it, to be able to make decisions, is incredibly useful. I'd say I don't think you can really move forwards without that. Obviously, there's a number of companies that have previous founders, but those of us who are new to the game, that's fundamental, I think, and it set us up really well. We still use a number of the frameworks that we learned through the program, specifically looking at swim lanes as an example for how to track, monitor, and execute on things. So I think that's super useful. I think the one-to-one kind of peer support from coaching is also useful. It's not just kind of join on Zoom, thank you very much, easy to switch off. There is that kind of reinforcement that comes through from coaching. And I think the peers as well. Like, we're not just building the business, but I'm also developing myself as a co-founder. How do I develop? How do I learn how best to do the obvious things, but then also the not obvious things? And a lot of the time, that's just talking to other people in the same situation. Some where they're at the same stage, some slightly ahead, some maybe one or two behind. But what I'm learning is a lot of this then comes down to how we manage the business and manage the team, and then manage each other as a co-founding unit. And I think that's the kind of softer side of things that's very easy to skip, and you can work in isolation. I think the peer support piece on other companies is useful. I bumped into a few other founders in Malmo last week at the Drop, which is a good event I would recommend for founders to attend. And it was great there being able to catch up and share stories and ideas. And there's one or two things you come away thinking, oh yes, okay, I can steal that and do the same thing in our company.
Yeah, great. Thomas, just from the point of view then of the startups that participate on the program, what do you have a general expectation of what you'd like to see, or how you'd like to see the relationship between those companies and Munich Re evolve over the future years, I guess?
I mean, these are two kind of questions. So maybe I refer to the first one first. So what kind of companies or what kind of applications do we like to see? I mean, first of all, I think it's valuable that we have a motivated team which knows which is engaged, which we can trust, which we can, as there is still a lot of build on trust and prospect, and where we can see the potential. So of course the personal side, the soft skill side, is very, very important to us. Then I think, just as we heard before, also the climate positivity. So at the end of the day, we would like to see less carbon in the atmosphere than before. And then ultimately, but this is something then to develop further, I think to find a credible solution. So, I mean, a lot of solutions do have credibility issues, and that's one of the big issues to be solved. And so have a credible carbon removal, credible, one can credibly state that at the end of the day, there's less CO2 in the atmosphere than before, is a very important point. And then kind of, is this business caseable? But that's something which we then, I think, would develop when engaging in phase one, and especially in phase two, when we then connect the selected startups to where each company, each selected team gets a mentor here at Munich Re. And then this mentor really, I mean, is of course an expert in herself, but also connect you to this broader Munich Re community, which not only consists of our own experts, which is technical expertise, which is market expertise, financing expertise, and not the least insurance expertise, but also our clients and our outreach. So they will become an integrated part of Munich Re time. And and that's something which we are pretty excited to get those new ideas, and then to run a bit of the way along with you guys.
Good. And I guess that's a really important consideration, Morten, as well, in terms of the community that a startup becomes part of, particularly after the program, because the program is obviously, it has a lifespan. It's pretty intense, even if it is 6-7 months long. But nonetheless, the company and the founders are expected to go out and apply that learning in the real world. But the Climate Kick community is there to help fill those gaps and continue the conversations going and continue the kind of process of learning. Isn't that correct?
That's 100% correct, and we take a very keen interest in all the alumni that has been part of our programs, and of course we do everything in order to support, but also in terms of potential challenges that coming ahead after the program finishes. That's where we are at service, you could say, because it is an interactive process as well, where both parties need to be active. So
yeah,
the community is active as all the you could say stakeholders.
Yeah. So Harry, is the carbon removal community as such, is it growing? Is it expanding? Because it's coming from a fairly underdeveloped, nascent part of its evolutionary process. Only a couple of years ago, really, nobody was familiar with even the term carbon removal, carbon capture. What's your sense of the community now in terms of not just the startup ecosystem, but people, companies and communities' willingness to engage with the theme and actually practically apply some of the solutions that are available now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of activity at the early stage where we are. So there are a lot of different startups. I'm always meeting new founders, new sort of DAC businesses that are popping up here and there, and all sorts of other ones as well. So I think there's a lot of activity. I think which is great, and I think it's vital that we have these kind of programs to cluster around. There does need to be kind of an industry-wide push, not just individual kind of breakouts. There's then other actors within that value chain that are now stepping up. If you look at some of these advanced market commitments that are coming through to actually start dragging companies from kind of, yes, interesting idea that could work, but who's going to buy? The wider sort of private sector corporate industry is stepping up. It needs to continue to do so. It can't just be kind of a one-shot, two-shot process. It needs to be repeated, and it needs to suck things through. So yes, there's a lot of activity. I think we're kind of still in the early throes, the first phases. We're kind of coming down on price point a little bit, but I think that willingness to pay piece is where rubber meets road, and it gets very serious, because we've spoken to a few different corporate buyers who have been going through saying, yes, we had this great portfolio, we had direct air carbon capture, we had enhanced rock weathering and a bunch of others, and it was going to be this big, and then the budget came through from seniors within the corporates, and then they changed and they bought some avoided emissions credits and a mangrove scheme, and not necessarily better or worse. I would argue slightly worse than what they could have done, but that's kind of where we are. Is that tipping point of, okay, what hits scale, what actually becomes usable today? But there's a lot of activity. I think which is good. Hopefully that does all coalesce, and we need these kind of cross-industry actors to help us pull that together.
Thomas, last question for you then. What's your sense, I suppose, at a corporate level, of general industries' willingness to engage with the theory of carbon removal in a proactive way, to the point where big companies are willing to invest large capital sums in order to help make this happen at scale, I guess?
I mean, there are two sides of it. There is an investment case, so I want to earn money with that, and there is a decarbonization case. So I do have my own decarbonization. I have my own CO2 footprint, and I need to get that down to somewhere near zero, or follow an IPCC path or a credible Paris Agreement path. And therefore, I need those carbon removals. So those two things. And I think for both sides, there is, again, depending on the market, an increasing awareness, and of course we have the early movers who are going in, who are maybe willing to get one or two bruises to write off some investments because it's either lost or for some other reasons. And there are, of course, the laggers who wait and see for it to be settled, to see the winning technologies, and of course the winning standards, so to speak, which still have to develop if we speak that from one point we go to a voluntary market to a more regulated market. So I think there is a strong, like in the whole climate discussion, there's some kind of a stratification with many big corps going in early, going in now, and others waiting for that.
Okay, great. Well, listen, gentlemen, it's lunchtime, one way or the other, wherever you might be sitting. So I think this is probably a good time to conclude proceedings, and thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, Thomas, Morton, and Harry. Folks, if anybody's interested in learning more about our Carbon Removal Accelerator program, I've just put the link into the chat, which you can refer to. That'll bring you to the website, which is an applications portal as well. So have a look through that, and if it's of interest to you, please do consider an application. The deadline for applications will be the 17th of September, this coming Sunday. So in the meantime, folks, thank you very much for your time. Thanks, gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.